Now I know I'm late to this video, but I just couldn't go on any longer without talking about it. This past NFL season, Lamar Jackson won his second MVP and a lot of fans were in uproar about it. Worst MVP of all time. I ain't gonna lie, this is the worst MVP season we have ever seen. I still can't believe the NFL awarded Lamar Jackson the MVP with 29 total touchdowns, all because the team was elite and won a ton of games. We will look back at 2023 as one of the worst MVP picked years of all time. And my favorite one, Jordan Love was more valuable than Lamar Jackson in every single way this year. Eyes and numbers don't lie. Well, Adam, I'm about to show you exactly why numbers certainly can lie. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. This past year's numbers from Lamar were not eye-popping. You know what Lamar is going to give you on the ground, but under 4K passing yards, a great touchdown to interception ratio, but even with that, only 24 passing touchdowns. But this wasn't the case for only Lamar. Statistically, this past season was one of the worst passing years in recent memory. You would have to go all the way back to 2017 to find a year with a lower passing touchdown and yard leader. So with an anomaly year in passing, you're going to have an MVP with not spectacular numbers. And this is exactly why I said numbers certainly can lie. Lamar Jackson won MVP for one sole reason, and that's how he dominated the best teams in the NFL with his all-pro tight end missing 7 games, his top 2 running backs missing a combined 25 games, and a rookie as his number 1 wide receiver. Here are the top 3 quarterbacks in MVP from this past season and their statistics playing teams 500 or better. Lamar Jackson has the best record, most touchdowns, and highest completion percentage. And mind you, Brock Purdy has an all-pro running back, wide receiver, and tight end, and Dak played with an all-pro wide receiver and Pro Bowl tight end this past season. And if we want to be real, the last stretch of this season really made the MVP a no-brainer. Going into Week 16, the MVP was truly up in the air with Brock Purdy leading the case. The Ravens would have back-to-back games against the 49ers and Dolphins, 2 11-win teams. And this was a real telling task that was going to show us a lot about the MVP race. And here's what Lamar did in those 2 games. Lamar Jackson went 2-0, had 145.3 QBR, completed 73% of his passes, had over 650 total yards, and a perfect 7-0 touchdown to interception ratio. And after that, it was basically all she wrote, folks. Now there's a quarterback who I haven't mentioned yet that you're probably curious to why that is, and his name is Josh Allen, maybe the player who most NFL fans feel was robbed of this award. Here are Allen's stats from this past season, and probably the most impressive is this. Allen set the record for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a season, 10 more than Lamar had. Now there's a big reason for this and proves number can lie, or be misleading, I should say. As you've seen, Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns, and when you look at the rest of the team, every other Bills player had a combined 7. Meanwhile, Lamar had 5. And do you want to guess how much the Ravens had as a team? 21. But it doesn't end there. The Ravens starting running back Gus Edwards also led the NFL in 1-yard touchdowns. So Lamar was leading the charge and getting them into position to score at the 1 and would have without a doubt had 10 plus rushing touchdowns this past season to make his stats look a little better. And trust me, this is no knock to Josh or me trying to live in a what if land saying Lamar could have did this or that. All I'm saying is stats can be misleading and not tell the whole story. But in reality, there's 2 reasons why Josh didn't have a chance to win MVP this season and came in 4th place out of the quarterbacks. To refresh your memory, here are Josh Allen's numbers this past season. And our first problem is this. The Bills finished 11-6 and placed 2nd in the AFC behind the Baltimore Ravens. Since 2010, only 2 quarterbacks have won the MVP, not being the 1 seed in their conference. And here are their numbers compared to Josh's this past season. And it's pretty easy to notice one huge difference from Josh to these other 2 quarterbacks. And it's this number right here. Not only is this number ridiculously high for someone trying to win MVP, but again, since 2010, only 2 quarterbacks have won MVP throwing for 10 or more interceptions. And here are their numbers compared to Josh. Only just the literal 2 highest passing touchdown seasons of all time compared to Josh at 29. And again, this isn't me knocking Josh's seasons, but to be an MVP of this league, you basically have to be the 1 seed, and you also can't have the 2nd most interceptions in the league. So yes, Lamar did have a statistically down year from what we're used to from your normal MVP, but as I said, so did the rest of the NFL. And honestly, in my personal opinion, I didn't even believe a quarterback was going to win the MVP. And no, I'm not talking about the Offensive Player of the Year in Christian McCaffrey. I'm talking about the wide receiver we refer to as the Cheetah. Through the first 12 weeks of the season, I truly believe Tyreek Hill was the MVP, and here are the numbers to back me up. Tyreek this past season had 119 catches, nearly 1,800 yards, and 13 touchdowns. And do you want to know how many wide receivers have put up these type of numbers? Cooper Kupp and Jerry Rice. Tyreek put up a stat line only 2 players in NFL history have ever done. So why didn't Tyreek win MVP then? Well, as I said, he was my MVP. Here's what Tyreek did through the first 12 games of the season. The Dolphins were the 2 seed, and Reek was on pace to have a true one-of-one season. And then the last 5 games of the season happened. The Dolphins would go 1-3, and Tyreek would miss a game as well. In these games, Tyreek dropped from 8.4 catches per game to 6.5. Yards per game at a record pace at 123.4, but then dropped down to 79.5. Averaged 1 touchdown per game, and was only able to score 1 over the last 4 games. Now let's live in a fantasy land real quick. If instead of the Dolphins going 1-3, they go 3-1 and beat the Ravens in week 17, and Tyreek's receptions only dropped from 8.4 to 8 even. His yards per game dropped significant still, but only to 95. And this time he scores 2 touchdowns instead of only 1. So the Dolphins would end up finishing the season as the 1 seed, and here's what Tyreek's numbers would look like. 125 receptions, 1,861 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And do you want to guess how many wide receivers have achieved that stat line in NFL history? Yep, you guessed it, none. So in this alternate universe, I think we could have had our first ever wide receiver to win MVP. But instead, Lamar Jackson in 20 years is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So in my opinion, I think it's a win-win. Hope everyone who watched this video learned something and also enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'm out. Peace.